What is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade basketball analysis coming to y'all with that quick analysis. We're going to talk about Luke Walton, Erin Fox, and the rest of this entourage, the Sacramento Kings. This team came close to making the playoffs, but ultimately missed it. This year had a huge disappointment. Changed their style, changed what made them successful under Jaeger. Ended up going back to a different style, trying to fix it on the fly. They were still competitive, still won a lot of games for what they was going to be ranked at coming into the season. I see the same thing happening this year. They're going to continue to fall into the same problem with this entire team and how it's built. I continue to tell y'all the way this team was structured and the way this team was designed was built for failure, not for long-term success. Year after year, we continue to see they have had no success as they have not even made the playoffs, and now they're stuck in not even being good enough at all because they haven't made the playoffs and not even been a playing team. And now we just look at this team and wonder what are they doing, what's going to happen, and eventually they're going to have to go in a different direction with this roster, and they're going to be forced to do it, and we will see what they do this season. When we look at Big Bagley, the 22-year-old top two pick. Didn't like him going into the draft. Didn't think he would be good. Didn't think he would be great. Didn't even look at him as a quality starter in this league, and he has been a rotation big so far in his career. When guys said they wanted to trade for him, I thought it was crazy. Just because what are you really going to do with Marvin Bagley, and what is he really going to do for you? If he's not going to be a great scorer, not going to space the floor, not going to protect the rim, it's hard to play him at power forward and at center because he doesn't do on any of those things great or even elite or even good. So the problem with Bagley is he's getting paid $11 million to be a rotation player. Eventually, once his rookie deal is over, I don't see a team trading for him. I don't see him staying on his roster. And ultimately, I feel like the Kings should go in a different direction. Harrison Barnes came to this team to give them switchability, came to this team to give him a stretch four when he needs to be out there and play, has did exactly what they needed him to do, has even became a respectable three-point shooter. And I feel like Harrison Barnes has done what he has done throughout his career, compete, defend, does what the team needs him to do, and ultimately, tries his hardest to put the ball in the basket. Has never became a great scorer or amazing scorer or a versatile scorer. This has been claimed a guy that's a jack of all trades. Can defend, can rebound, can shoot, can play make, and can also just camouflage in with the offense. And that's basically what he has been for the Sacramento Kings. Terence Davis is going to be interesting when you look at him. He was a guy that I wasn't really high on, and I'm still not, but they have to eventually figure out what they're going to do with their guards as this team has been lost in construction. Terence Davis just gives them depth at the shooting guard position. Just give them another guy that can put the ball in the basket. And until he improves his shooting and his consistency in that area and his shot creation ability, he most likely will be a rotation player in this league. Tyrese Halliburton, I liked him in the draft. He's a guy that can play the point guard and also can defend the shooting guard position. Solid playmaker, solid scorer, floor spacer, and just a guy that understands the game and plays it the right way. I liked him in the draft. Has been basically what I thought he would be in the NBA. And I really just see him as a solid player and have really no problems with him because he was as advertised and ended up coming in and being exactly what we thought. Maurice Harkless has been a guy that's been bouncing around the league as he hasn't been able to develop that three-point shot or he hasn't even been able to become a solid defender. He has become just a rotation player in the league that gives you mobility, gives you athleticism, give you a little bit of open court ability. And that's really about what he has become. Sacramento took a gamble on him just because he gives them wing depth, and he's going to give them that this year. Rashawn Holmes has just gave them a solid center that can set screens, hit a floater, dunk, finish around the basket, and that's what they asked him to do. That's what he brings to the table. And at the end of the day, he has succeeded in that role and got a long-term extension with this team. We'll see what else he becomes, but if he continues to do his job, he has got paid pretty well for it, and he has been very productive in that role. Damian Jones out of Vanderbilt has been interesting. it's going to be interesting to see if he even get legitimate clock on his team, as they have other guys that are better than him on their depth chart for the center position, and I just don't see him getting more minutes than them. So I just see him being a third string center. If somebody gets injured, somebody gets hurt, he can just come in and just give them production until somebody comes back. Lewis King, I don't see him making the roster, and if he does, he's not going to have a significant role. Alex Lynn is just a solid center. He can hit a push shot, he can hit a hook shot, can finish, can post up a little bit on mismatches. Not a great rim protector, not a great defender, a okay rebounder, but is basically a productive big that you can give him a specific role. He can go in and fill it, and that's all he's really going to bring to the table for this team. But that's what they brought him in for. Metu, a power forward, still hasn't really found his identity in the league to me. Has just been a hustle effort guy, and that's really about it to me. It's going to be interesting to see what he becomes if he does leave the Kings, as he hasn't really became a great skill set player or hasn't even found a great role that I can really see him being in the league for. But then again, it could be coaching, could be the personnel that they already have, and that's something that he's going to have to figure out with his career. Davion Mitchell got a lot of hype, got a lot of praise because of his defense. This team has been one of the worst defensive teams, especially on the perimeter. They answer that question with Davion Mitchell. The thing will be is his offense. Will the 3-point shot translate? Will the playmaking be there since he's going to be playing point guard and some shooting guard defensively? He's still going to have to produce a little bit offensively on the other side of the court. It's just going to be the efficiency check for him. We know he can make shots. We know he has confidence in his shot. He just ultimately has to put it together and just do it on the NBA level. I feel like his defense is a reason why I felt like he was a lottery pick. I think that definitely will translate, but what he will be in the league will depend on what he does offensively and how his game matures, especially as a playmaker, as I don't really see him being much more than the point guard, but his defense will keep him in the league. The other guys that's on this league on this roster, I don't really see them getting significant playing time, and I really don't even know how to pronounce the first guy name, so I'm not even going to say it. But he was out of Utah State. He's on the roster now. May not make it, but he's worth mentioning. Terry is also worth mentioning because he's on his roster, but I don't see him making it. Or if he does have a significant role, Jemias Ramsey is a shooting guard that gives you the ability to play the point or the two as a combo guard. Offensive game still needs to develop, especially the 3-point shot if he's going to be a 3-and-D guy. Hasn't really been able to do that in college, hasn't did it at the NBA level, and that's something that he's going to have to figure out. If you're not going to be able to finish, you're not going to be able to hit mid-range or threes, what I'm going to really utilize you for. So he's going to have to figure out something and just get a shot just to get a good start in the NBA, and hopefully he can get that done this season or at least build upon that in the future to have a chance to be a legitimate rotation player in this league. Tristan Thompson got dumped for my Celtics and they picked him up happily for Sacramento. He will get a lot of minutes, will give you toughness, screen setting, floaters, finishing, hustle, muscle, rebounds, and a lot of effort. And he can play the center position depending on what lineup and who you have around him. So I understand why they went for Tristan Thompson, and I think that he will be a good fit for this team, and he'll just give them just some toughness that they're lacking, especially in the interior. Robert, I don't really see him getting significant playing time or having a huge role just because he still has to find his offensive game and be able to make some shots, especially off the dribble, or at least be a great 3-point shooter, which we will have to see if that develops in the future. When I look at their big three, which will basically be De'Aaron Fox, and now we can just talk about Buddy Hield, since we already talked about Harrison Barnes and Bagley. This is one of the biggest reasons why this team struggles, is just because Fox has been what we thought. I like Fox in the draft. I feel like I liked his speed. His mid-range game has improved. His 3-point shot still isn't where you want it to be, but he's also making it better than he has. Still has worked on his in-between game. Still hasn't become a great or elite at it yet, but he has become a 25-point scorer in this league, which hasn't really amounted to no wins, which could be frustrating, especially because the personnel hasn't got upgraded or have changed really at all. And that's why they're going to continue to be stuck, because they have no elite level scorers or talent outside of De'Aaron Fox, who hasn't even become a lit, efficient and dominant scorer himself, but he has produced and he has took advantage of his situation and just don't have enough help around him. And then you have Buddy Hield, who has also become a 20-point scorer. A lot of it is inflated because of his system and because of the team, but he can make shots. He can give you a bucket, especially from the three-point line. Can also hit the step back mid range and pull up mid ranges, and has really just embraced being a scorer on this team, just like De'Aaron Fox. And this is where the bulk of their offense come. This is where they have really depended a lot on to get their offense from. But ultimately, he just struggles being a great defender, great playmaker, and just not an all around player. He's great at what he does, and he perfected that, honestly. But that's what Buddy Hield is a shooter that can hit some layups and get out in transition and really has become the best version of what he is. And that's all he has really done, and you have to give him credit for that. But this team is in a direction where they will win games, but they will ultimately miss the playoffs, and they will also be in a lottery, and this will continue to happen to this team just because they're going to be winning games, but they're not going to get a top 5 pick. And if they get a top 5 pick, they have to develop them or hit on the right pick, which they continually haven't done. And if they do, they just don't build a good enough team around them because either people don't want to come here, they don't have the talent to really be competitive like they have with DeMarcus Cousins and also De'Aaron Fox. And that's the hole that they are in right now with Fox, the same one they was in with Cousins. A lot of coaching changes, a lot of personnel changes, same result of failing and not making the playoffs. The best thing they can really do is just try to get a superstar in the draft because I don't see a free agent signing, and they don't really have young players that I want outside of Fox that can really get you a superstar in return. But at the same time, if you're getting rid of Fox, you ain't gonna have enough superstars to make this team competitive, and then you still have to have guys want to come. We've seen the problem with Cousins and other superstars that came to this team. They just haven't been able to build a whole movement, a whole collection, and get guys under. And even when they draft, they haven't really hit or developed those guys to become a great team that's young. This team has been solid. His team was a borderline playoff team, but hasn't been able to even get to that point, which means this team has really been far and far and far away from a championship when you can't even make the playoffs. Even years and years after trying to do that, they haven't even accomplished that goal. It just shows you how far this organization and this team is from actually being legitimate in the NBA, and they haven't really been legitimate in like 20 years, to be honest. And I don't really see that changing at all unless they bottom back out in the draft, get lucky, get a superstar, and then we can see what they do with that in the future. But until then, this team will be bad defensively. This team will be bad in general. And I don't really believe it's Luke Walton. They just don't have enough talent. They just don't have enough defense. They just don't have enough nothing. They have a bunch of guys that love playing basketball and want to compete, but they just don't have enough at all to really win, especially in the Western Conference that just got even deeper. So just when they thought they was on the cusp, they got worse or not better. Teams got better. Teams made trades and they just stayed the same or made minor improvements or got worse because they players went to other teams, and then they just crumbled to the point where they at now, where they took what they can get, they did the moves they can make, and it'll ultimately result in a losing season again. It's sad for the Kings fans because this is all they have seen. This is all that they have gotten in the last 20 years, but all you can do, try to go for the lottery, hope you get a guy that can change that fortune. That's it. Honestly, that's all you can do. But then again, that's the reality they have been in. Outside of making a trade, which will most likely give up Fox or Hield, that guy will have to be significant upgrades to make this team go in a different direction. So, if I had to be honest, like I said years ago, this team is on pace to be right back in the lottery for a couple more years. And ultimately, they still may not even make the playoffs, like I said years ago. And it's reality today. And I think it will continue to happen until they finally hit and get that other guy that can really become something special. It wasn't Bagley. It wasn't Fox so far. And ultimately, they have to get that guy. Until then, they're stuck. Um, but then again, that's why you lose a lot of games. try to get the lottery pick, and try to rebuild in the future. So, like I said, this team will be bad again next year and the year before that. And even if they get the pick, they're still going to be bad because that player has to grow and develop into a superstar. So that will take years too. So this team will be bad for a couple more years, and I don't really see that changing. So that's what to expect from in the future. That's what to expect from this season, and this will continue to happen until they break that loop. But I don't really see it breaking no time soon. So other than that, Quinn Wade, Basketball Analysis signing out. See y'all tomorrow.